Ladies and gentlemen, we have a trade to announce, an actual trade, and not one of those minor league moves that we've been seeing where two AHLers or even ECHLers are being moved for each other. An actual hockey trade happened. And so if you've been living under a rock, you already know what I'm talking about. I'm wearing the Canucks gear as well. Just actually got this jersey not too long ago. But yeah, the Vancouver Canucks trade their captain, or former captain I suppose now, Bo Horvat, one of the biggest pieces of the trade deadline thus far, to the New York Islanders of all team in exchange for Anthony Beauvillier, a first-round pick in 2023. There's a couple conditions on that. I'll get into that later. And Aatu Räty. So my initial reaction to this trade was just kind of in shock, really, for both teams. Both for Vancouver in a sense of like, that's all they got back. And then the Islanders, it seems to be more of a move towards the future for me with the New York Islanders. Checking out the Islanders right now, they're not totally out of a playoff spot. They're a couple of games above 500, but they would need to go on a monster run to actually get into the playoffs, in my opinion. They would have to really begin to put their foot down, really begin winning some games, stringing together a couple of win streaks here if they really want to truly make a push for the playoffs. Bo Horvat would definitely help them here. I mean, he's having a career year. If you look at his stats here, he's got 31 goals and 23 assists. He's got 54 points in 49 games on a Canucks team that has been just awful this year, quite literally awful. And of course, the big thing with Bo Horvat is the fact that he's a UFA this summer. I would imagine the Islanders are already having conversations with him about, sticking with the team past this season. And then on top of that, just for this season, he's making $5.5 million against the cap and is expected to command just over $8 million on the open market. This guy is a top center. He will get paid like it. And whether you have him as a number 1 center or a 2C, it doesn't really matter. Bo Horvat is a fantastic center. He does a lot right and was a bright spot on a pretty terrible Canucks team. And then in terms of what the Islanders give up, they did a pretty good job in getting value for Bo Horvat. If you trade away Anthony Beauvillier, he only has 20 points on the year, 9 goals. Beauvillier, he's been an Islander for a long time. He was mainly, I guess, sent for just salary filler, just to kind of match the outgoing salary to the ingoing. That's not a word, ingoing. And then the first round pick is the interesting one because there are a couple conditions attached to the first round pick. The first round pick is top 12 protected, meaning that if the pick falls within the top 12 this year, it becomes an unprotected 2024 pick. Chances are, if the Islanders remain where they are, I believe it would put them just above that. I believe if the Islanders kind of just stay where they are right now, the pick would go to Vancouver. The Vancouver Canucks would really be hoping that the Islanders kind of just bottom out for the rest of the season, fall within the bottom 12 of the league, which they don't stand right now. I would have to look at the standings. I don't really remember off the top of my head. But the Islanders do a good job at protecting their asset that I don't imagine them falling that far. So they'll probably end up just giving up a pick that falls past the top portion of the draft. And then another interesting note is that the Canucks actually retain 25% of his salary. So if you want to just do the quick math, he's making 5.5 against the cap. That probably falls into like the 4 point. I'm gonna say 4.2, but I know that's very wrong. A couple notes on Beauvillier here. He's making 4.15 against the cap. He's a solid forward. The Islanders obviously aren't a team that score a lot, so thus explains why he has only 9 goals in the season. But Beauvillier has been solid for the Islanders for a long time. He's a good forward. He's a good top 6 winger. While you don't get a piece that replaces him, Aatu Räty is a really good prospect to look at. I mean, we're talking about a guy that at one point was considered to be a consensus number 1. I think it was the 2021 draft, and then his stock just plummeted, and it was a result of more he didn't really improve where others did. That there are good portions to Räty's game, but the portions that you'd want to see him excel in to make him a good NHL player, they just really were never there in his big year, in his draft year. He's only had a cup of coffee in the NHL. In 12 games, he's scored 2 goals. Islander fans seem to be really fond of this kid. I've seen a couple say that he's going to be a future star. I haven't personally watched Aatu Räty this year because I don't have access to Islander games. Islander fans seem to be high on him. I remember him as being a pretty good prospect. Getting him in the second round, I don't think anybody really expected him to fall all the way to 52. I remember he was projected to be, at the very least, a top second round pick. They're able to package him off for a good center, and in my opinion, Vancouver doesn't necessarily get enough in this deal, which I think is the general reaction to this, that Vancouver, they get a lot less than the expected return was. Yes, you get your first round pick. Yes, you get Aturati, but you don't necessarily get anything to make you better. You don't get anything that really replaces what Bo Horvat brings. So now you have a slot at center, which I'm guessing JT Miller's going to move to center for the rest of the year. The move to me says more about where Vancouver is headed. I still think we're going to see guys like Luke Shen be moved out at the deadline, along with maybe a guy like Connor Garland. And Vancouver is essentially just in full tank mode at this point. I would assume that if they were trying to right the ship and turn things around, we would have probably seen a better return. We would have probably seen players who can make impacts now. Not that Beauvillier is a bad player, but he's only signed until next year, and I would imagine that maybe they trade him next trade deadline. I don't know. And then in terms of the Islanders, the initial reaction for me with the Islanders was, okay, what is the plan here? Are they trying to make the playoffs this year? Is this a move for this year where they're going to go all in? They're going to bring in Bo Horvat just for the season, try to maybe get him an extension, but if they don't, that's fine. Are they going to try and get into the playoffs, win a round? Like, what is New York's game plan here? Are they trying to make the playoffs this year, or are they going to sign him to an 8-year and try to have something sustainable with him, which having Bo Horvat on your roster makes you better, just in my opinion. Just thinking about that center depth in New York now, where you're going to have Barzal, Horvat, Pajot, and I know I'm forgetting other players on the Islanders, but having that center depth, that is freaking fantastic center depth for the Islanders. And for a team who's been known for struggling with offense, and it's been incredibly prevalent this year, bringing in a guy who already has 30 goals on the season is fantastic, especially for how little they gave up for him. So yeah, that's just my initial reactions to the trade. So happy to finally be making videos back on the channel again. I mean, I have been swamped with schoolwork, and then I was initially planning on making a trade deadline video, which I'm still going to try and do. And then this thing drops, this trade, which initially when I seen it, I was like, oh, the Islanders, which I've kind of gone over in this, where I really wasn't expecting to see the New York Islanders of all team go after a guy like Bo Horvat. So yeah, those are just my initial reactions to the trade. Leave a like, subscribe, follow the Instagram. It's Buzzin' from Muzzin. Y'all already know what it is. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.